The hallway mirror showed her walking away. She hadn't moved. For a second, Mara assumed it was a trick of timing, the kind of visual lag that happens when you glance up too quickly. Her hand was still on the light switch at the end of the hall, the overhead bulb buzzing faintly as it struggled to hold a steady glow. The house had been quiet all evening, the kind of silence that made every small sound feel misplaced. But in the mirror, her reflection was already halfway down the hall. Not just a step behind, moving with intent. Shoulders angled slightly, arms swinging in a natural rhythm, as if she'd turned and decided to leave. Mara didn't breathe. Her real body stayed fixed near the switch. She could feel the wall against her fingertips, the faint texture of old paint beneath her skin. Nothing about her had moved. In the mirror, she reached the far end. The reflected version of her paused at the corner where the hallway turned toward the bedrooms. The overhead light flickered once, and in that brief dimming, the reflection seemed to blur, not disappear, but stretch, like a frame of film pulled too thin. When the light steadied again, the reflection was gone. Mara blinked hard and looked directly at the glass. Now it showed what it should, a narrow hallway, slightly warped by the old mirror's uneven backing. Her own figure stood near the switch, pale in the yellow light, exactly where she was. She let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Okay, she murmured, more to fill the silence than anything else. Old house. Bad wiring. Tired eyes. The explanation settled uneasily, like something placed on an uneven surface. She stepped forward, testing the space. The floor creaked under her weight in familiar places, the sound grounding in a way she needed. One step, then another. In the mirror, she followed. Perfectly aligned. Mara stopped halfway down the hall and watched herself. She lifted her hand slightly. The reflection did the same. Relief came, but only partially. It didn't erase what she'd seen, it just sat on top of it, thin and unconvincing. She turned her head toward the bedrooms. Both doors were closed, just as she'd left them. The air felt cooler here, a subtle drop that brushed against her arms. Behind her, the light flickered again. She looked back at the mirror. For a moment, everything matched. Then her reflection's head tilted. A small, curious angle. Mara's didn't. The difference was slight enough that her mind tried to correct it automatically, to assume she had moved without realizing. But she hadn't. She could feel the stillness in her neck, the tension held in place. In the mirror, the tilted head straightened slowly, as if acknowledging the discrepancy. Mara's pulse ticked upward, each beat sharper than the last. She took a careful step backward. The reflection hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then it stepped back too. Stop, Mara whispered, the word barely audible. Her reflection's lips parted. It didn't speak, but the shape of the word formed clearly. Stop. The air in the hallway seemed to compress, the silence thickening until it felt almost tangible. The faint hum of the light grew louder, filling the space between them. Mara forced herself to move again, this time more deliberately. She raised her arm higher, holding it out at an awkward angle. The reflection copied her. Exactly. She lowered it. It followed. The synchronization returned, smooth and precise. But now it felt practiced. Like something correcting itself. Mara's gaze drifted past her reflection, deeper into the mirror's image. The far end of the hallway looked longer than it should have. The perspective stretched subtly, as if the distance had increased by a few feet. The corner leading to the bedroom seemed further away. She glanced over her shoulder. The real hallway was unchanged. When she looked back, the mirror's version had stretched a little more. Her reflection stood closer to the center of it now, even though Mara hadn't moved forward. The light flickered again, longer this time. In the dimness, the reflection didn't blur. It stayed clear, sharper than the rest of the image. Mara felt a slow, creeping awareness settle in. The mirror wasn't just reflecting. It was showing something else. Another version of the space. Another alignment. Her reflection took a step forward. Mara's body locked in place. In the mirror, she moved again, one foot in front of the other, posture relaxed, like someone walking down a familiar path. Don't, Mara said, her voice thin. The reflection stopped. It turned its head slightly, looking not at Mara, but at something just out of frame. Then it looked back at her. Its expression had changed, not dramatically, not enough to point to anything specific. But there was a focus in its eyes now, an attention that felt directed. Intentional. Mara's throat tightened. What is this? She asked, though she didn't expect an answer. The reflection raised a hand. Not mirroring her, acting on its own. It pointed, past Mara's shoulder, toward the space behind her in the real hallway. A cold sensation slid down her spine. "No," she said immediately, shaking her head. "No, I'm not doing that." The reflection didn't lower its hand. It held the gesture, steady and insistent. Behind Mara, the house made a sound. Soft, subtle, a shift in the floorboards. She squeezed her eyes shut for a second, trying to steady herself. Her thoughts moved quickly, searching for something rational, pipes, settling wood, anything. When she opened them again, the reflection was closer. It hadn't walked, it had simply advanced. Now it stood near the midpoint of the mirrored hallway, much nearer than Mara's actual position. Its hand was still raised, still pointing, but its expression had softened. There was something almost urgent in it. Not threatening, warning. Mara's breath came shallow. "If there's something there," she whispered, "you need to show me." The reflection's gaze flicked again toward the unseen space behind her. Then back to her. Slowly, it shook its head. No. A quiet, deliberate refusal. The light flickered harder now, the brightness dipping and surging in uneven pulses. Each time it dimmed, the mirrored hallway stretched further, the distance warping into something unfamiliar. Each time it brightened, it snapped closer, but not all the way back. The distortion was cumulative. Mara realized, with a growing sense of dread, that the mirror wasn't just misaligned. It was drifting, separating from the real space, inch by inch. Her reflection lowered its hand. Then, carefully, it stepped backward. Mara didn't move. In the mirror, she retreated down the hall, step by step, eyes locked on Mara the entire time. A silent instruction, "Stay." The message settled in Mara's chest with a strange clarity. "Why?" she asked. The reflection didn't answer. It just kept moving back, increasing the distance between them. And then Mara noticed something she hadn't before. At the edge of the mirrored frame, where the hallway turned, there was a shape, not clearly defined, not fully visible, but present, a darkness that didn't belong to shadow alone. It seemed to occupy the corner, pressing slightly into the hallway, as if waiting for space. Mara's stomach dropped. In the real hallway, behind her, everything was silent. Unseen. The reflection stopped retreating. It stood near the far end now, much farther than the physical space should allow. And then it did something Mara hadn't done at all. It turned around, not to leave, but to face the corner. To face the shape. Its posture shifted, shoulders squaring slightly, as if bracing. Protecting. Mara felt the implication settle slowly, heavily. The mirror hadn't been wrong. It had been ahead, showing her what would happen if she moved. If she turned. If she walked down the hall. The light flickered one last time, plunging the space into a deeper dimness. When it returned, the reflection was still there, standing between the hallway and the waiting dark, watching it. Holding its place. Mara didn't move. She didn't turn around. And in the silence, she understood. Whatever was behind her wasn't in the mirror. The mirror was the only place it hadn't reached yet. Her phone lit up with a message. "I'm in the room with you." Lena didn't pick it up right away. The screen's glow spread across the coffee table, pale and intrusive in the otherwise dim living room. The television had been on low volume for background noise, some late-night rerun she wasn't really watching, but now the voices felt distant, flattened beneath the weight of that single sentence. She glanced at the phone again. No name, no number, just the message. A prank, she thought immediately. A wrong number, something automated, maybe. Still, her eyes moved, slow and careful, across the room. The living room was small, familiar. Couch, coffee table, bookshelf along the far wall. The hallway leading to the bedroom sat just beyond the edge of the TV's light. The front door was locked. She'd checked it twice earlier out of habit. Nothing looked out of place. No movement, no sound beyond the quiet murmur of the TV and the soft, periodic click of the radiator. She leaned forward and picked up the phone. The message was still there, stark against the dark screen. "I'm in the room with you." No typing indicator, no follow-up. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She hesitated, then typed. "Who is this?" She stared at the screen after sending it, her reflection faintly visible in the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the reply came, immediate. "You looked at the door first." Lena's head turned before she could stop herself. The front door stood in its usual place, shadowed at the edges where the light didn't quite reach. Closed, still. A cold, precise feeling settled in her chest. She looked back at the phone. "You always check that first." Her fingers tightened around the edges of the device. "Okay, she said quietly, as if saying it out loud might anchor it in something explainable. Okay, someone's messing with me. A friend, maybe, someone who knew her habits. But no one had a key. No one had been over in weeks. She typed again. If this is a joke, stop. The response came just as quickly. Not a joke. A pause. Then another message. Turn your head a little to the left. Lena didn't move. Her heartbeat picked up, a steady, uncomfortable rhythm that made it harder to think clearly. The rational part of her mind pushed back. This was coincidence, manipulation, someone guessing. But the timing felt too exact. Too immediate. The phone buzzed again in her hand. You're not going to, are you? She swallowed, her throat dry. That's fine. Another message. I can wait. The room seemed quieter now. The TV's volume hadn't changed, but it felt like it had receded further into the background, its presence no longer enough to fill the space. Lena became aware of smaller things, the faint hum of electricity in the walls, the almost inaudible shift of air through the vents. Sounds she usually ignored. Now they felt distinct, separate. She stood slowly, the phone still in her hand. This isn't funny, she said, louder this time, directing it toward the room itself. No answer, just the low murmur of the television. She took a step toward the hallway, then stopped. The phone buzzed again. Don't go in there. Her eyes dropped to the screen. Not yet. A chill spread through her arms, a prickling sensation that made her skin feel too tight. She looked up at the hallway entrance. Dark. Still. Why? She asked, her voice quieter now. The reply took a second longer this time. Because you won't like what you don't see. Her grip on the phone shifted. What does that even mean? No response. Seconds passed. Then, go back to the couch. Lena hesitated, then let out a short, breathless laugh. No. The phone buzzed again, sharper this time. Please. The word felt different, less controlled, more urgent. She frowned, her thoughts shifting slightly. Why are you saying, please? A pause. Then, because I can't move. The words sat on the screen, heavy and out of place. Lena's mind raced to fit them into something coherent. A person hiding, someone trapped. It didn't make sense, but it was something she could understand. Where are you? She asked. The reply came slower now. Close. Her pulse quickened again. Close where? Another pause. Longer. Then, in the part of the room you're not looking at. The air seemed to thin. Lena's gaze shifted instinctively, scanning the edges of her vision, the spaces between objects, the corners where shadows gathered. Nothing. But the idea settled in her mind, rooting itself there. You keep moving your eyes, the next message read. That makes it harder. Her breath caught. Harder for what? No answer. Instead, sit down. Her legs felt unsteady, but she resisted the instruction. Tell me where you are first. The phone vibrated. If I tell you, you'll look. A longer pause, and then it will see you properly. The words sent a sharper jolt of fear through her, something deeper than the earlier unease. What will? For a moment, the screen stayed still. Then, the thing that isn't me. Lena's chest tightened. You said you were in the room. I am. Another message followed immediately. So is it. Her eyes darted again, faster now, less controlled. Every shadow seemed slightly off, every still object carrying the potential for movement. Then where are you? She whispered. The reply came, slower than any before. Measured. I'm where you were sitting. Lena turned, slowly this time, toward the couch. The cushions were slightly indented from where she'd been. The blanket draped over the armrest hadn't shifted. Nothing moved. Her phone buzzed. Look closer. She stepped toward the couch, each movement careful, deliberate. The fabric looked the same. The shapes familiar. Then she noticed it. The indentation in the cushion was deeper than it should have been. Not just where she'd sat. Next to it, as if someone else had been there too. The phone vibrated again. That's where I am. Her breath came shallow now. Then why can't I see you? A long pause. The longest yet. The room seemed to hold itself still around her. Finally, because you're looking at the wrong version of the room. Lena's mind struggled to process that, to attach it to anything real. What does that mean? She asked. The response came immediately this time. Put the phone down. Her fingers tightened instinctively. No, please. The word carried that same urgency again. Just for a second, Lena hesitated, then slowly lowered the phone onto the coffee table. The screen stayed lit. Another message appeared. Now step back. She did. One step, then another. The glow from the screen shifted slightly as her angle changed. Stop. She froze. Now look at the phone. She leaned forward just enough to see the screen clearly. The camera was on, front-facing. Her own image filled most of the display, slightly distorted by the low light. But behind her, on the couch, someone was sitting, perfectly still, watching. Lena's body went rigid. The figure looked exactly like her. Same posture, same clothes, same face, except its eyes were fixed on the screen, not on her. The phone buzzed one last time. "That's me." A second message followed, almost immediately. "You're the one standing in the wrong place." The image on the screen shifted slightly as the figure on the couch tilted its head, mirroring something Lena hadn't done, watching her with quiet, patient focus. And then, very slowly, it began to stand.